Hello everyone, welcome to Vijay Mohan IAS Academy. Hope everyone is doing well and everyone's preparation is going fine. So, as part of TSPSC Group 1 Mains Paper 4 Introduction and Approach session, in the last video I discussed about Part A of the syllabus, that is Indian Economic Development and Related Issues, and I have provided a broad overview of the first 5 chapters, or otherwise the 5 chapters of the Part A, that is Indian Economic Development and Related Issues. And as part of that video, I have given a brief or broad overview of the 5 chapters and how to approach those 5 chapters, and what are the areas that as an aspirant you need to focus, and what are the previous questions that were related to those chapters, and what are the probable questions, some of the probable questions from those chapters. And the link for the video will be provided in the description, so you can access the same. And before watching this video, I'll suggest the aspirants to go through the previous video so that you'll be having a broad idea about the first 5 chapters of the economy paper. So as part of this video, I'm going to discuss about first chapter of Part B, that is Development and Environmental Problems and Related Issues. So in this video, I am not going to discuss about the 5 chapters which are mentioned under Development and Environmental Problems, but I'll be going to discuss first chapter of the Development and Environmental Problems. And from now onwards, I'll be discussing, or I'll be making a video of each chapter, so that I'll be able to give a comprehensive idea about how to approach the chapters. So as part of the Development and Environmental Problems under the paper 4, or under TSPSC Group 1 paper 4 mains, I'll be discussing about the first chapter of Development and Environmental Problems and Related Issues, and how to approach this chapter, and what are the areas that you need to focus in this chapter, and what are some of the previous questions asked related to this chapter, and what will be the probable questions from these chapters. These I'll be discussing today, and subsequently I'll be making some more videos on each chapter. So first, this one I have already discussed in the previous video, why I used word approach instead of read, and what is the role of this, what role this paper will play in the final selection, and connectivity with other papers, that is paper 1, paper 2 and paper 5. We just go through the previous video, and the link of the video is provided in the description. And one more thing, that some of the aspirants are requesting to make the video in Telugu medium. As of now, it is not possible to make a video in Telugu, so as of now I'll be using English only, and I'll be making my videos in English only, and inconvenient is regretted. So the first chapter in Part B, that is Environment, Development and Related Issues, the first chapter is Environment versus Development, and definition of, as part of this Environment versus Development, it has given that definition of environment and environmentalism, environmental protection policy, environmental policy instruments. This is the first chapter provided in the syllabus which was given by TSPSC. Okay, so if you observe this chapter, it has been very systematically given. Okay, environment and development, they have nowadays in public policy or in public discourse, environment and development are not conflicting goals. Environmental protection and development, or growth, or economic growth, has to go hand in hand, and it was recognized and it was accepted by everyone. So as part of this, now environmental protection, environmental conservation and sustainable development became an integral part of economic policy. So there is an organic sequence in the syllabus what they have given. First, you see environment versus development. They are concentrating their focus on debate on environment versus development, and next, what is the definition of environment they are giving, and what is the meaning of environmentalism. and environmentalism, from environmentalism it will come the environment movements, various environment movements for protection, conservation and sustainable use of resources or natural resources. And from this, environmental protection policy has been formed, and from the environmental protection policy we have to derive environmental policy instruments to protect the environment. So in this way there is a logical sequence for the in this chapter, you have to observe that. And as I already told, environment and development, environment versus development, there is always a debate. There used to be a debate that development has to be pursued. Earlier there used to be a view that development, we have to give priority to the development, and as we progress, environmental sustainability or environmental conservation protection will take its due course. However, in policy parlance it has not happened. If you see the historical development, if you see the development history or history of the development, especially in the Western countries, the balance between the development, economic growth and environmental protection has not been there. So the environment protection and development or economic growth debate has been going. So as part of this debate, that is environment versus development, there are three main views in academic circles or in public forum. That is mainstream view, and second one is reformist view, and third one is critical discourse. I'll be briefly telling you about what is the mainstream view, what is the reformist view, and what is the critical discourse. So now if you come to mainstream view, this is the predominant one until recent past. So what is this mainstream view? In the mainstream view, development is considered as primary one, and development will be based on scientific knowledge. With scientific knowledge, industrial growth will come, and with industrial growth, economic development will happen. And the economic development, which is based on scientific knowledge and industrial growth, has to take primacy. So here the economic development is given due importance rather than environmental protection. And if you see the development history of the Western societies, it is being, you can observe it, and the development history of the Western societies is replicated in other countries, for example developing countries. So what is the development history of Western societies? The development history of Western society is first development of innovation. Through innovation, industrial evolution has been achieved. Through industrial evolution, industrial growth has been achieved, and through industrial growth, economic development has been achieved. And nowhere in this cycle there is a concern for environment or usage of natural resources. So they thought that economic development naturally will lead to environmental protection and conservation. However, there is no explicit mention of environmental protection and conservation. In fact, the development history of Western society has given due importance to economic development rather than environmental protection. So that is the predominant view, and that is the reason why it is called mainstream view. And it is being replicated, the development history of Western societies is being replicated in other countries, that is developing countries. That is the problematic area in this view. And this view considers the history of development as unilinear, that is, it is a, it is not diverse, it is a single pointed or single goal oriented, that is development oriented, and it is apolitical. Apolitical means it does not depend upon the political setup of the country or society where development is pursuing. For example, if you consider that in democratic countries or societies, the development needs or development processes or development tools should be different compared to other political societies or political setups, and it is considered that the development is a technology driven and it is independent of specific socio-political and cultural factors. So basically this point is telling that the development is being pursued in a unilinear and without any consideration for political setup, and it is being considered as a technology driven rather than people driven, and it is independent of specific socio-political and cultural factors. That means there is no due recognition given to the political setup, cultural setup, and as well as the social conditions of the particular region or particular country where development is being pursued. Because of this unilinear and a one-stop solution, there was a primacy given to the development rather than the environmental protection and environmental conservation. So this is the mainstream view, and this is one of the views as far as environmental versus development debate is concerned. So this interpretation of development in the mainstream view is of two types, that is interpretation of development by professionals and interpretation of development by local people. So what is the meaning of this dominant social categories and marginalized social categories? For example, as far as mainstream view is concerned, the dominant social categories like policymakers, leaders, and business enterprises, all these categories consider development and interpreted development in this category. And the marginalized social categories like local people, tribal people, aboriginals, means the people who are residing in the area for generations, and forest dwellers, they have interpreted development in this manner. So now if you see other views, that is reformist view and critical view. So after 1950s or starting of the 20th century, there was a agreement that environmental degradation and economic growth are not different subjects, or environmental protection and economic growth are not different sections. We have to view both of them as complementary in fact. So in reformist view and critical view, it was accepted that environmental protection, conservation and economic development has to be pursued at the same time, and both agree that there is a closer interconnection between the crisis of development as well as environmental destruction. And if you see the World Conference on Environment and Development report, there was a report in 1987. That report is Our Common Future, and it was called with another name, Brundtland report. So this report has in fact gave an input to, or gave a push to reformist view and critical view. So this report, that is World Conference on Environment and Development report, it discussed on four important factors. What are those four important factors? One is related to poverty, another is related to economic growth, another is related to survival of humankind, and another is related to economic crisis. By discussing on these four aspects, the World Conference on Environment and Development report has initiated a different view as far as the debate of environment versus development is concerned. And the reformist view has suggested remedy for the environmental destruction, that it has suggested that we need to give some kind of control for the management of natural resources to the local people's institutions. So the reformist view has suggested that you have to provide some control to the management of natural resources like land, water, energy resources to the local level people's institutions. And it has also said that we have to beef up, or we have to strengthen the civil society, and we have to improve the people's participation, and we have to increase the local governance. These are the remedies suggested by the reformist view. And as far as the critical discourse is concerned, critical view is concerned, the remedy is that there needs to be a fundamental shift not only in the models of development but also in the attitude of community or individuals towards the use of natural resources. So this view is radically suggesting that the individuals or community and their behavior towards the natural resources has to be changed. In fact, it is like behavioral economics. So the behavior of the community as a whole and individual has to be changed radically in order to protect the environment. So these are the three views. And here I have to mention that if you read the World Conference on Environment and Development, this is a very good report, and you can find the intellectual debate on environment versus development topic, and this report led to the World Conference on Environment and Development. So these are the broad areas that you need to focus as far as environment and development is concerned. And if you see some of the previous questions which were asked from this area, and I have gathered some questions from UPSC. So the first question is, rehabilitation of human settlements is one of the important environmental impacts which always attracts controversy while planning major projects. Discuss the measures which are suggested for mitigation of this impact while proposing major developmental projects. This was asked in UPSC 2016. And another question is, what are the consequences of illegal mining? Discuss the Ministry of Environment and Forest concept of go and no-go zones for coal mining sector. This is asked in UPSC 2014. So related to displacement, environmental impacts, and illegal mining and destruction of environment, there were questions. So the environment and development debate, you have to see in this context, what are the dominant views, what are the marginalized views, and what are the remedies suggested by them, and what are the Brundtland report says, and what are the remedies suggested by the report. So these things that you need to understand clearly, so that you will be able to answer the questions. Now if you move to the another component of the syllabus, definition of environment. So definition of environment was given in the Environment Protection Act of 1986, and it says that environment includes water, air and land, and the relationship which exists among and between water, air and land, and human beings, other living creatures, plants, microorganisms and property. So this is the broad based definition, or a broad definition which was provided in the Environment Protection Act 1986. So I don't think again I am telling that there won't be a direct question on definition of environment, but it is better to know the definition. And another concept, if you observe in the syllabus, the concept is that environmentalism. So what is the environmentalism term means? So the term environmentalism refers to an explicit active concern with the relationship between the human groups and their environments, while environmentalists refer to political activists in some way. So the environmentalism is nothing but an explicit and active concern with the relationship between human groups and their environments. So the relationship between human groups and their environments, and the explicit active concern regarding the this relationship between human groups and their environments is concerned as is called as environmentalism. In a way, environmentalism is also refers to as environmentalism gives rise to environmental movements. So how environmentalism is focusing on the relationship between human groups and their environment. For instance, a localized community, a forest community or tribal dwellers, they consider their natural resources, their forest resources as sacrosanct. So they will try to protect or conserve the resources, and that is one type of environmentalism. And for instance, some people are protesting against the construction of big dams, construction of major dams, and destruction of forests. That is considered as the environmentalism. So in fact, environmentalism is nothing but giving push to the environmental movement, or giving or providing a platform, or it is an active concern for the environment, and thereby giving widespread environmental movement. For example, if you can say the Chipko movement, then if you can say Silent Valley movement, all these are the part of environmental movements. And so this is the thing that you need to understand about environmentalism. Now if you see, environmentalism in India and environmentalism in Western countries is different. Now the Western environmentalism is actually a nature centered one. That is to say that it has generated, or it has came into the picture in the efforts to protect endangered wildlife and conserve natural habitat. It is in a way the environmentalism in Western countries has started with the concern for protecting the endangered species or wildlife and conserve the natural habitat, or pockets of what do you say, natural resources, forest resources. So in a way it is called as protectionist conservationism. So it is a conservationism, but it is related to aspect of protection. So as far as Indian environmentalism is concerned, it is quite different from the Western environmentalism. Indian environmentalism is human centered. That is to say that the human is very much involved, or very much important as far as environmental movement or environmentalism is concerned. So it is, in fact, we can say it is a survival oriented, because why this is human centered, why it is survival oriented means the population of India, like traditional forest dwellers, like what you say, aboriginal people, like tribals, they are dependent more on these environmental or environmental resources or forests or natural resources. So the natural resources or environment aspects are very much intertwined in the lives of the humans or tribals or forest dwellers living in India. That is why the conservation of Indian natural resources or Indian environment, and thereby environmentalism is more human centered in India and more survival oriented. That is the reason why the Indian environmental is called as utilitarian conservationism. As well as far as Western environmentalism is concerned, it is called as protectionist conservationism. So this is the protectionist conservationism, and Indian environmentalism is called as utilitarian conservationism. And the Indian environmentalism, if you observe, there are a lot of localized movements, a lot of environmentalism at the local level is going on, and the environmentalism in India is gradual in scope and gradual in its intensity and gradual in its spread. That is to say that the environmentalism in India started around 1970s and it gradually increased in 1980s, and it has increased some more in 1990s due to globalization and liberalization. So it is gradual in its spread, in its scope, in its intensity and in its spread. So that is the difference in India's environmentalism and Western environmentalism. You have to remember these two things, that is protectionist conservatism and the utilitarian conservationism. That is the basic difference between the Western environmentalism and Indian environmentalism. And if you see, as far as Indian environmentalism is concerned, it is very much intertwined with the other branches of the society, or you can say of the society. If you see, it is connected to politics, it is connected to economy and development, it is connected to society, and it is connected to culture. So everything is connected as far as environmentalism in India is concerned. So political structure, political institutions, economic development, economic growth, social structures, social development, cultural attributes, cultural context, all these are interrelated with the environmentalism and environmental movements. So that is the reason why these are the things that you need to observe. Then if you see, environmentalism gives rise to environmental movements. And what are the environmental movements in India? During the 1970s, the environmental movement started. Actually, Chipko movement is in fact a major first environmental movement that has captured the nation's imagination. So during the 1970s and 1980s, the environmentalism, the opponent or potential opponent of the environmental is state. So there, state used to put an effort or convince the people that you have to give primacy to the development, and environmental protection will take its own course. So during 70s and 80s, the potential opponent for these environmental movements is the state. However, the 1990s has changed the scenario, and with the introduction of LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization, the potential opponent changed from state to the corporates, or you can say MNCs or private players. So now the situation has changed. Now private players or market forces came into the picture, and they tried to change the status quo, and they tried to give primacy to the development or usage of natural resources intensely, instead of protecting and conserving the natural resources. Though there were efforts to conserve the environment and conserve the environment and natural resources. However, primacy was mainly given to the developmental push or developmental attributes rather than the protection and conservation. There are efforts, nevertheless there are efforts. However, it seems that there will be a more aggressive push towards the development, and some supplementary or some minor importance is given to the environmental protection and conservation during after the 1990s. So this angle also you need to understand as far as environmentalism and environmental protection, environmental movement is concerned. So what is the major difference of environmental movements during the 1970s and after the 1990s? So this aspect also there is a chance that there might be a question. So if you see the probable question, describe how globalization has contributed in changing the nature of environmental movement in India. So after the LPG, there is a change in the environmental, there is a change in the nature of the environmental movement in India. So if you see the other component of the syllabus, environmental protection policy. So you have to observe that it was not mentioned about the environmental protection acts or conservation acts. It has specifically mentioned about environmental protection policy. Under this environmental protection policy, aspirants has to concentrate on some of the major policy statements or major policies which was enacted in India or which was announced in India. The first one is that national conservation. Before that, you have to concentrate policies which are related to preservation, conservation and protection of the environment. And under this, India has enacted several policies during all these years. So first one is National Conservation Strategy and Policy Statement on Environment and Development in 1992, and National Forest Policy 1988, Policy Statement on Abatement of Pollution 1992, National Water Policy 2002, National Environment Policy 2006. These policies you have to prepare a brief notes. Maybe there might be a direct question, what is the National Environment Policy 2006 aims or objects? Describe how it will protect the environment. Like that, they might ask a direct question. So you need to concentrate on these policies. So if you see the previous question, enumerate the National Water Policy of India. Taking river Ganges as an example, discuss the strategies which may be adopted for river water pollution control and management. What are the legal provisions of management and handling of hazardous wastes in India? It was asked in UPSC 2013. So why I have placed it here means that it has mentioned about the National Water Policy of India. Like this, there might be a question in the upcoming exams directly about the National Environment Policy of 2006. So all these policy statements, you need to prepare a brief note on these things. So this is the thing related to national policies. I am just providing a brief approach, brief idea that how you have to approach these syllabus components are concerned. And if you see the last one, that last aspect of this chapter, environment policy instruments. So earlier the component is environmental protection policies, and what are the now this is environmental policy instruments. What are the policy instruments that we are having to protect environment? So that is the main issue. And as far as this component is concerned, aspirants has to focus on what is the significance of this environmental policy instruments. So this environmental policy instruments, I will tell you that there are a lot of instruments available like taxes, fees and charges, tradable permits, deposit refund systems, subsidies and voluntary approaches. These are some of the policy instruments which are available to protect, conserve and promote or sustainably use the environmental or natural resources. So using these instruments, you can implement environment policy. So first of all, what is the significance of these instruments? Why we need to focus on promoting these instruments in environmental policy? See, if you see the significance, then you will be able to understand. So these policy instruments will provide market signals in the sense that which are the products that you need to use to promote environment, which are the products you need to consume less. So these signals they will give, these instruments will provide, and they will influence the behavior of producers and consumers. So these instruments will influence the behavior of producers and consumers. For instance, if you see taxes, for instance, if nowadays there is a plastic ban, single-use plastic ban. So before imposing a blanket ban on plastic covers, they have increased the price, or they have increased the taxes on the, or they have increased the prices of the plastic products. So because of this increase, the behavior of the producers and consumers will change. They will reduce the consumption of plastic, and producers also, they will reduce the production of the plastic. So they will influence the behavior of both producers and consumers. This is also one of the important aspect or significance of these instruments. And now, if you see, it will incorporate environmental costs and benefits into the budgets of governments, businesses and individuals. So because of these instruments, it will impose some costs and some benefits into the budgets of governments and businesses or households. It means to say that if taxes are increased, if fees and charges are increased on certain polluting products or certain products, or if taxes are reduced on certain products which are promoting environment or promoting sustainable use of resources, then there is a change in the budget of the governments. Then there will be a reflection of sensitivity towards the environmental issues in the budgets of governments, businesses, and even at the household level also. For instance, consider electric vehicles. If there is a reduction of taxes in the electric vehicles, then there is a promotion of purchase of electric vehicles by the individuals. Thereby it reflects the sensitivity in the households or individuals budgets. So in this way it is important. And another one is another significance of these environmental policy instruments is that they will internalize the use of natural resources into governments or firms or households decision. Same example as I told you earlier, that because of these policy instruments they will internalize the good use of the natural resources into households decisions or government decisions. So they influence the decisions so that the households or governments or firms will use natural resources in a responsible way, and it is also acts as an effective and cost efficient way to achieve environmental goals, and they serve as the measurement tools or indicators, etc. So the instruments which are available are significant for these things. You have to remember this. And what are the instruments available? Taxes, fees and charges, tradable permits, deposit refund systems, subsidies, and voluntary approaches. These are the instruments available. I'll be telling you briefly about these things. So taxes, fees and charge. It will increase the cost of polluting products or activities and discourage their consumption and production. So because of the increase of taxes, fees or charges, it will discourage the consumption and production. And there is a particular difference between tax and fee or charge, because tax you should not expect any return benefit, but as far as fee and charge is concerned, you can expect a benefit, then only you will pay the fee and charge. So that is the basic difference. An example is pollution tax, coal cess, etc. And if you see what are the tradable permits, these are used to allocate emission or reduction exploitation rights, for example clean development mechanism. So this will provide a country or a project to emit whatever their capacity to emit the greenhouse gases, whatever it is, by promoting a project in another country, like developing country or another area. So this is like a tradable permits. And deposit refund system, so it places a surcharge on the price of potential polluting products. Means it will place or it will impose a cost on the potential polluting products, and when pollution is avoided by returning the products or their residuals, the surcharge is refunded. So basically the cost of the product, for example a plastic box will cost only 20 rupees. However, the cost of the plastic box will be increased to 25 rupees, so that the recycle, after using this plastic box, they will return it to the producer, so that producer may recycle it. And when the user is returning this plastic box, then the producer will pay this 5 rupees which is imposed while purchasing the box. So there will be a surcharge or there will be a cost on the product, so that the consumer may return the product for recycling or reuse. So that is the intention about this deposit refund system. So when pollution is avoided by returning the plastic box, by returning the products or their residuals, the surcharge is refunded, the cost is refunded. Like that example, plastic bottles, lead acid batteries, motor vehicles, scrap tires, and they will return, the consumers will return to the producer, then the producer will pay some amount. So this is the example in deposit refund system. This is also one of the instrument. Then subsidy. The subsidies are environmentally motivated, and they reduces directly or indirectly the use of something that has proven specific negative impact on the environment. Example is that VAT exemptions on electric cars, feed-in tariffs on renewable energy generation, tax credits for environmentally relevant investment. These are some of the examples. So it is basically giving a subsidy to the products which give a positive impact on the environment, which save natural resources, which reduces the intensity of the use of natural resources. So this is also one of the instrument. And another instrument is voluntary approaches. For example, nationally determined contributions of India, which are submitted to the UNFCCC. So these are the voluntary approaches or voluntary contributions to the environmental protection, conservation and natural resources protection. So this is also one of the policy instruments. And apart from this, there are many instruments like environment impact assessment, which is mentioned in Environment Protection Act. So this is also one of the instrument to protect, promote use of responsible use of natural resources in a responsible way. So these are the things that you need to understand as part of the environmental policy instruments in the syllabus given in the syllabus is concerned. Okay, so the previous question as far as this issue is concerned, that environmental impact assessment studies are increasingly undertaken before a project is cleared by the government. Discuss the environmental impacts of coal-fired thermal plants located at coal pit heads. It is asked in UPSC 2014. So as far as this chapter is concerned, these are the areas that you need to have a clear idea, and these are the areas that you need to focus, and this is the approach that you need to develop for this chapter is concerned. And moreover, you need to prepare your own notes as far as these chapters are concerned, and you need to expect some questions, and you need to write the answers as far as this chapter is concerned. And this chapter, there is a possibility that the theoretical questions may be asked, like what is the debate, what is the evolution of debate on environment versus development, and what are the views in the environment versus development debate. So there is a chance that theoretical perception will also be asked as far as this chapter is concerned. And as far as policy aspects are concerned, you have to thorough with the objectives, aims of the important policies. So that is also you have to concentrate. So this is the thing that you have to concentrate as far as the first chapter is concerned. So thank you. In the next video I will be discussing about the next chapter. Okay, thank you.